We're sharing a mic.
Oh.
It's like we share everything, Jeff.
Aaron brought a 2-liter of Sprite over.
So you're sharing that too?
We are.
Nice.
Grant Hill drinks Sprite.
Grant Hill drinks Sprite.
Grant Hill drinks Sprite.
Do you remember that commercial?
Yes.
So good.
I hadn't thought about that in like
Whisk
15 years.
Whisk the dog.
It's what I always think about when I drink Sprite. Grant Hill drinks
It's
Sprite.
true. I brought some pizza over to John's house a couple days ago, and I didn't tell John at the time that it actually came with a 2-liter of Sprite.
Oh, is this it?
Because we had a bunch of children, and I didn't want the children to be exposed to the evil and
sugary
properties of the Sprite.
Yeah.
So we
Delicious.
brought it over. I was saving it for tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the good stuff right there.
Welcome to Predator Minute, the podcast that breaks down the 1987 action sci-fi classic Predator 1 minute at a time. I'm John Zabriskie.
And I'm Jeff Glover.
And with us today, we have the returning guest of all guests. You might say a returning host, Aaron Zabriskie.
Please.
That applause.
Sit down. All right, hold your applause.
Hi, everybody.
Aaron, so awesome to have you back.
Thank
Back.
you. So if you say anything like the way that he said Mac, it's kind of like you are Arnold.
It's what this podcast has devolved into, is just us yelling Mac. At
Mac!
everything.
Oh, and Dylan.
Dylan.
Oh, it's the little things.
So Aaron, for all of
Yeah.
our listeners out there, do you want to say what you've been doing, where you've been, adventures you've had during this hiatus?
Not particularly.
Okay, fair enough. Let's move along.
Let me say this. The last time I spoke to you, I was in Africa.
Correct.
Currently, I am in John's studio.
Wow. You went from one wasteland to another.
We prefer the Donald Trump-inspired term of shithole.
Yeah, you went from one shithole country to another.
Oh, man.
I'm joking.
We
for all my
actually don't
African
prefer that.
people out there. Yes, that was a bad joke. We love
Don't
Africa.
prefer that at all.
We are talking minute 43 of Predator. Minute 43, you might call the Dennis Eckersley of minutes. It's a baseball reference, Jeff.
I actually knew that one. I'm proud of
Oh.
him. He's a pitcher, right? Or did I just?
He
get
was
that
a
wrong?
pitcher. Yeah.
Hey,
He was.
okay.
Hey.
All right.
You have the Hall of Famer Jack Sikma, who played for the Seattle Supersonics.
Yes,
a long
I know
time
that one
ago.
too.
Hall of Fame baseball player Ralph Kiner, and surefire Hall of Famer to be Troy Polamalu, the Hare.
Hmm.
Oh, and there's a bonus. There is a number 43 football player named Albert Mack.
Mac. Once again, there's like two guys out there with an Albert Mack jersey that just got excited. Nice find. Well done finding guys named Mac wearing the right number.
All right, so minute 43 of Predator opens with Anna looking on in blood-covered shock and ends with Panchito looking at some guts on the ground.
Guts.
Ba-ba-bum. So, Jeff, tell us, what are we seeing first in the minute?
All right. So to kick things off here in this minute, we've got a nice, like, horrifying shot of Anna with blood splattered on her face. And her mouth is kind of agape and she's breathing heavy. If you just kind of pause on that frame, it's a pretty great horror shot. Like, looks like straight out of a horror movie. And then we quickly transition to a chase, right? Because whatever has happened to Hawkins here, it has obviously alerted the crew. And so they are running to find out what's going on. So right away, we get fast moving camera action and we're tracking. Who do we got here? That is Mac
Dylan
and
and Mac running screen right to screen left, and then Panchito and Dutch running screen left to screen right, which I thought was interesting to show them running in opposite directions. I was wondering if you knew, like, what was that meant to symbolize?
Yeah, you're right, because
Converging.
we get them from right to left, and then we'll talk about the Predator hand here in a minute. And
the
then
Predator hand.
the next shot is him running right to left. I don't know. I mean, they could be running in the same direction. You just move the camera to the other side.
Yeah.
I think just movie wise, like composition wise, it's a little more interesting to have a change in direction. It kind of adds to the frenetic feeling of the chase.
Right.
We also missed an opportunity there because it was Mac and Dylan, so we really should have been
Mac! Dylan!
Or at the very least, they could have argued amongst themselves.
But in between these two cuts of them running through the jungle, we get another, only our second shot at this point in the movie of the camouflaged predator. But this time we see his hand reach in and grab, was that Hawkins' leg, right? Yeah. So what do you think about this little sequence here, guys?
I think it's great. I think it's given us a chance to focus more on the kind of like business end of what the Predator is doing, not just like the crazy, terrifying kill shots, but also seeing the Predator do what a hunter would do, which is you're taking your downed prey out of the environment, out of the area, but also you're seeing way cool invisible hand shot, which when you converge it with the Predator actually walking away, they look like two completely different technologies being used for the camouflage shots, for the active camouflage. And yeah, those are some effects which we can talk about a little bit later that I totally don't understand, even though I read about them a lot. But that gauntleted hand, it comes down, it looks like it belongs to the Predator that we see later in the movie. But then when you see him walking away, it very much looks like, I don't know, like a much slighter person than the one that we see. It doesn't look like a 6 or 7 foot tall Kevin Peter Hall. It looks much more like what we know now as the Jean-Claude Van Damme costume.
Right. Did you guys notice the two sound effects we kind of get back to back as he grabs the ankle here of poor Hawkins?
Ugh. sounds like a knife being inserted into some flesh.
Yeah, we get that stabbing sound, and then we also get kind of a squishy, like gross sound kind of with it. You know, did you notice that? Like along with the stabbing.
Yeah,
it's kind of like it just sounds like he's crunching his ankle.
Yeah, like he's just right, like game that he's taken out. It doesn't really matter if it's being manhandled or alien handled, roughly.
Aaron, did you have anything to add on our appearance or our look here at the Predator hand? You know, if you're a first time watcher of this movie, this is only the second time you've gotten to see the camo here.
It's true. I think it's a really good shot. I'm sure you guys have talked about this, but the interviews with the producers, the director's commentary, they talked about how important this effect was to the movie. In fact, there's a quote, they quoted Joel Silver several times in this, saying that when he saw this effect for the first time, that's when he said he knew they had a movie they could make. But before they had this effect, they didn't know how they were going to make this active camouflage thing work in the movie. So this was like an extremely important thing for this. And just like John said, I think I've read the same interview from this website called VFX Blog with one of the special effects guys in this movie. And it's super complex, and I have no idea what they're talking about. Well, they're using this terminology. I have no idea what it means.
Right.
I think you had to have been like in the movie making business in the 80s and 90s to know what it is that they're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, sorry to interrupt, but just for any of our younger listeners out there that might not be aware, like this is not CGI. They had to use practical camera effects here to pull this off, and in the late 80s, that is a very kind of hit or miss proposition. It could either end up looking great like it ended up looking, or it could look really shitty and kind of draw you out of the movie as soon as you see it. So hats off to them for figuring it out.
Yeah, the one thing I can kind of connect to is they keep referencing the use of mattes. And matte painting to me means matte paintings to me means like your old like Star Wars and Indiana Jones movies that are trying to create some kind of fantasy landscape. So in the background, or just 10 feet away from the character, is like this green screen, and then when they're editing the film, they're just putting that painting on the film itself. So that's what you see, and that's what they say they're doing here with the effects, is that they're using concentric lined mats in the place of this red suit. So the original suit
Oh,
and the Kevin Peter Hall suit later on are both red suits against this green lush background because it's that exact opposite color. And they would use that.
right.
They would say, I think the quote they use is to like film a hole in the jungle somehow
Right.
using the difference, and then on the film stock or whatever, they're able to put just a series of mats again, like these they call them matte inlines, to create this kind of ripple effect. So almost anytime that you see the camouflage effect, you're seeing a bunch of concentric shapes within that. So it's almost like a miniature version at the tiniest part of the camo.
Well, it's really effective and impressive because it still is like see-through, like you still see what's going on behind his hand or behind his body. You brought up matte paintings, just a little aside, like I know that's kind of an antiquated thing that you find in older movies, like Indiana Jones, like you said, comes to mind. But man, there's something like so great about those matte paintings. I always love seeing that in older movies, and just the artwork that goes into those. Another director that used those a lot was actually John Carpenter. He has a lot of matte paintings you can find in his like in the landscapes in the background of his movies.
Yeah, like Escape from New York, the opening shots there. I was listening to that Minute by Minute podcast, and they were talking about the whole cityscape being matte paintings with like the little helicopter imagery going in front. And yeah, I just love that movie magic. It's kind of like when there's like a light, like a filming light in front of the person to like light their appearance. There's something about that. I just really like that.
Yeah. There's another great matte painting in The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, when he has some wide shots of Antarctica, some really beautiful matte paintings of the snowy mountains in the background. It's pretty awesome.
That's a good movie. You like that movie, huh, Jeff?
Oh yeah, we were talking about this was brought up before we started recording. Yeah, the Zabriskie brothers asked me what they thought my favorite movie of all time was, and I think I have to go with John Carpenter's The Thing. It's just I watch it every year. Usually in
Christmas.
October.
It's a Christmas movie.
Like just gather the family around.
Just like Die Hard or Predator, it's a Christmas movie.
I can't let the Halloween season go by without watching it. It's just that near and dear to me. So there you go. That's my all the time recommend for the show is to go watch The Thing.
John, you were talking about the model that they used for this effect. I know that they had at least 4 different models that they used for the person who was in the red suit that would later get the special effects superimposed over them. But I'm not sure if they ever delineated exactly who was where. And just like John says, this doesn't look like a 7-foot tall guy in this shot. Yeah. So I'm curious. I would be curious to know if this might be Jean-Claude's only on-screen appearance in this movie.
That is what people on the YouTube say, and that's a lot of times where I go for like the little backgrounds, is that almost always there's someone in the YouTubes with like a little kernel that you're hoping is a true thing. So yeah, we're looking at The Thing on there's the vfxblog.com post, and it says VFX soup Joel Hynek recalls the days of optical compositing, thermal cameras, and that red suit. And about a third of the way down, there's a video where they are talking about the red suit and how garbage it was. There's pictures of John McTiernan wearing the arm of the red suit because originally this thing looked like, I don't know, almost like on its feet without a giant tail lobster, maybe like still,
awful.
Yeah, it looked awful.
I don't know if we've spent enough time.
Oh, here it is.
Talking about how horrible this thing was.
Yeah, it was horrible. Here we go. Here's your shot of the red suit dragging Hawkins out. And
so that's the shot they used in the movie.
That's the shot they used in the movie, and that's Jean-Claude.
I did not know that. Thank you for finding that, John.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can see, on that website, he's just totally dragging him out. I don't know if this is something that's done where there's a rope attached to make it a little bit more smooth, but then they're showing that back to back.
Well, there you have it. That is Jean-Claude Van Damme's one screen appearance that they saved in the final cut of this movie. That's interesting.
That's great.
Well, the other thing that I find interesting is, they at one point later in the movie, I'm sure we'll talk about it, they put a chimpanzee in a red suit to try to film it jumping tree limb to tree limb. That one, not in the movie.
Yeah.
Jean-Claude Van Damme, however, who was fired
Yeah.
in the movie.
Yeah.
Better
That
than
kinda-
chimpanzee.
That's a really cool find, you guys. That's awesome. You talk about him getting dragged out right here, which is kind of the next little sequence that we see. I really like the way that's done with the camera right down, like pretty much on the ground. And you're right, John. It looks like there might almost be a rope or something going on because the effect is so smooth.
Mm-hmm.
Like Hawkins is pulled so easily and casually by the predator. The way they do it makes him look, immensely strong. Like this is no problem for him to just drag this guy out with one hand. So it makes you think there might be some sort of, pulley or something involved as well.
So I have like a question, a continuity question. So we see him dragged off, and he's still wearing the glasses. I was wondering, how do you think the predator killed him? Because we talked before, and you said he just maybe smacked him like real hard. And I'm sure people who've watched this movie, maybe by and large, think he's been gashed by the blades. What do you think, Aaron?
No, we don't know that he got hit in the face. And in fact, based on the second shot, where his face is relatively intact, he probably didn't get it in the face.
Also, do you think he might be wearing some sort of like band behind his glasses to hold them on? Since
there's a name for those.
He has some kind of advanced technology to keep his glasses on.
Croquis, we call them in the glasses biz.
I don't think he has croquis on, as I recall in earlier shots. Doesn't look like he has them. Regardless, the one thing that I think is interesting is, two things are interesting about the shot. You were talking about the fact that he doesn't mind mangling the body. You probably, John, I'm sure remembers in the original script, it calls for the predator to actually preserve the skins.
Yeah. Oh, just gruesome.
And
like
John McTiernan says in
style.
the director's commentary, he said he wasn't going to do it. It's too gross.
Yeah.
And it seems obvious in the movie that John McTiernan made. It took no care taking care of the skin like he was originally called to do in the script. So I think it means he could have sliced and diced this guy every which way, and it would have been fine. Based on the fact that we see at the end of this minute his guts lying all over the ground. Mm-hmm. Presumably he got him somewhere in the abdomen.
That's a good point. Yeah, maybe some good abdomen slice. But yeah, or eventually, right?
He eventually had to get cut open in the abdomen in order to get the guts out.
Eventually he cleaned Hawkins.
And presumably if his goal was just to kill Hawkins, because we see much later in the movie he has other ways to get his trophies out, the skull and spine, that he doesn't need to actually go through like a careful gutting process like you would with a trophy animal.
Right.
He's probably just going for a kill shot.
Yeah.
And so if he's just going for a kill shot through the torso and abdomen, then he can totally avoid the face.
Right. And when we see Hawkins later stringed up, I believe next minute.
Yeah.
There's theories about why he hangs up certain kills and takes out the skulls of certain kills, and the theory is that those, like, he had to fight more for those are the ones he keeps, and the weaker ones are the ones he just strings up and
lets the birds get him.
Yeah, just let the crows or the vultures at him. But yeah, I'm not a hunter, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think your average deer hunter would have a lot of rules about which skulls you keep and which ones you just string up in the trees and let the birds back at.
All right, so are we ready to go on to the next section of the minute here?
John McTiernan decides to speak up here during his commentary for this minute.
Wow, I'm shocked.
It is all over the place. He's talking about the having to film between Puerto Vallarta and Palenque. He was saying the first costume was really terrible, but then he goes on to say that pause in production as they waited, I forget how many months, for the real costume to take shape and to come into being, that he was able to relocate the shoot from Puerto Vallarta to Palenque, Yucatan Peninsula, where there's a lot more actual jungle, at least in that season. That's all I really had from him. Everything else we've really talked about.
Jeff, are you okay? It sounds like you just fell over.
No, sorry. I had to get up and get another beer. Sorry, guys. I finished my glass of red. I decided to grab a beer out of my beer fridge in the garage. So I missed the second part of what you were saying.
Well, he was alluding to the fact that they had to do this movie in two different shoots, Puerto Vallarta and Palenque. And the one thing I was thinking about, I think John and I talked about this way back in one of the earlier minutes. Which is, can you think of a movie where you think about hearing about them having to like completely redo where they're shooting the movie, restart with a bunch of different things, and halt production for months on end, that ended up being like a really good movie? Typically when you hear things about that, like a troubled production and like, oh man, they've got to change all these different things in the movie, you're thinking, uh-oh, that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign.
Oh, Solo, a Star Wars story. That was good.
I just saw Solo on the airplane. Yeah,
because they had to
it was
change.
an okay movie. I just
directors
didn't
partway
think
through.
it was what it actually was trying to be.
Right.
I thought it was a good, different movie. Well, so I think of the latest Predator movie where they had to reshoot like the whole second half of the movie.
Oh my God.
After
Jesus.
the test screens all hated it.
Yeah.
I
Did
made
you see
it.
the new Predator? No, yeah, you don't need to.
I was told it was kind of not that great.
I've told you it's not that great.
I made it like 30
John
minutes
said he
in.
really didn't like it. You only made it 30 minutes?
Yeah, and then I
Didn't
was
you
like,
pay
no.
like $12 for it?
No, I didn't go to the theater.
$12.
I didn't see it in the theater. No. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you went to see it with John.
Oh no. No.
30 minutes, you just told him, sorry, I'm out of here.
Stand up and walk out. Fuck this. All right.
Anyway,
so,
this movie, an exception.
Yeah.
They completely redid a lot of things. There were months in between the two different sides of shooting. And I think this is like a tribute to all the filmmakers on this, especially John McTiernan, of being able to make something good out of something that wasn't that great to begin with. They're really able to rescue this movie.
Do you think Billy had his bodyguard with him that whole time too during that? Or did they probably all flew back?
Calls him back 6 months later, and he's like, "Hey, you want to go back to Mexico?"
It's like Billy never left. Billy's still down there somewhere.
He's still there. Billy
Fighting
just
people
walked
like-
to the next location while everyone else went home for a while.
He and his bodyguard.
Yeah. I'm just gonna walk. I'll camp along the way.
Gonna go out that valley, but I wouldn't wish that on a broke dick dog.
I wouldn't wish that on a broke dick dog.
Okay, so what's next?
What's
after
the
the
All right.
Predator
Yeah.
drags
Jesus
the
Christ, you guys.
body
Can we
out?
get to the next section here? Oh my God.
Man.
All right, so the next section here really is, although it's like the last kind of like 3/4 of the minute, it's all really kind of one sequence. So why don't I just kind of I'll take us through what happens here, and then we can talk about it as needed. So after the Predator pulls poor Hawkins into the trees, we jump back to a chase sequence here, and who is that running right there? Is that Pancho?
Oh, wait, at the 16-second mark? Yeah, it's Panchito. He's coming in hot. He's jumping over things, kind of like a callback to Hawkins chasing her just a minute ago and doing like the flying hawk.
Yeah.
tackle.
So Pancho's coming in. You're right. He's coming in hot. And he's running after Anna, catches up to her, kind of slams her up against a tree or a log here, and sees the blood all over her face, and kind of takes a pause here and looks around, and you can tell he's visibly shook up by what he's seeing. He's realizing that, oh shit, something bad, really bad has happened. And he looks down into the leaves and sees the blood. And we get a really nice kind of long camera shot here following Pancho and then looking down at the blood. And we're following this trail of blood. We see like a backpack also covered in blood. Backpack! Matt! And as Pancho makes his way through the leaves, he pushes them aside, and we get guts. Guts. Yeah, we get a nice pile of guts here, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know I took us through that whole sequence there, but we can kind of back up a little bit. But yeah. So what do you guys think about this? About Pancho grabbing Anna and then discovering the trail of blood?
Well, I love the silent movie part of this, where this whole minute is dialogue free. Everything that you need to know is just being told to you visually. There's nothing you need to hear someone say, like, oh, what happened? Oh, like, I'm in shock. Something just happened. No, it's just all right in front of you, and you're reading people's faces, whether it's Anna's bloody shock face, or it's Panchito scared, a little bit sleuthing face, trying to track down what exactly is happening. But on top of that, I really like the carryover from where he was smacked by the slug earlier by Anna. He has some blood on the side of his head, right where she smacked him. And I went back and checked that, and that's definitely the side of the head he was hit on. So that's great continuity by your makeup department, your John McTiernan, whoever else is keeping track of that.
Yeah, real nice continuity there. Yeah, that's good.
Script I think the script supervisor is the one who's in charge, if I remember from watching enough Hollywood shows. that's who's paying attention to continuity.
Yeah, Poncho's doing some good acting here. Like he really sells this whole sequence. I think he does a nice job. I keep on coming back to this pile of guts, but I'm really impressed by the by the special effects on this pile of guts here.
Yeah.
They got like a coil, like it looks like a coil of intestines.
Yeah.
It's pretty gnarly. Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe a large intestine, a small intestine. Aaron, you
sound like you're like dictating the thoughts of Poncho here as he's looking down at it. Whoa, pretty gnarly.
Yeah, Aaron, you're in the medical field. Can you enlighten us on what we're looking at here?
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about this. I was going to talk about a few other things about this sequence that I think are kind of interesting.
Okay.
One is how green literally the last couple of minutes of these shots are. And you guys probably remember from McTiernan's talking of how they had to be using basically about imported leaves.
Mm-hmm.
That this is all like ferns that they brought in from town from some greenhouse because they were shooting in winter, and you can see in all of these shots of the ground is covered in brown decaying leaves. And he's saying that that's all from because this is winter and all the foliage is starting to drop from the trees. And so all these big fern leaves are just stuff that they have like planted around. And so I think they've done a really good job of making the jungle seem a little closer and greener and more claustrophobic than it probably was. And the fact that I had to point this out, I think, is good because it means that it wasn't obviously obvious.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Now that you say that, I can picture that these are just like potted plants, that they've set around here.
Yeah. And McTiernan comments on that a bunch about how difficult it was to make all the shots seem green, especially most of the first half of the movie, which was done almost all in Puerto Vallarta before they went over to Palenque, where things are actually green and they didn't have to fake it.
Yeah, they did a good job. Like it does. I didn't even realize that. I mean, I know that I had heard that story. John and I have talked about that a little bit, but I wasn't thinking about that in this scene. So that means you're right. They did a good job here.
As far as the guts go, that looks like they could be guts. One thing that's interesting is, and this is true in a lot of these movies, and it's worth pointing out, is your guts aren't just free floating in your belly in the place where they are. They're all anchored in one way or another, not necessarily super tightly. So they've got a lot of room to maneuver and squish around.
Stick around.
But if you were to cut open someone's belly, the guts wouldn't just fall out. They would be kept in some sort of modicum of placement by all the little pieces of connective tissue that are in there. And so if you have guts laying on the ground, it means that either the predator had an especially messy kind of slice in that first slice that was able to disconnect everything all at once, or he actually stuck his hand in there and ripping things out. Because they wouldn't just fall out.
Yeah,
and that's true in a bunch of movies. That is often very inaccurately portrayed. But yeah, this looks to me like a bunch of sausage links that they doused in something gross red movie, Hollywood blood. It's pretty gross.
Pretty gross.
Looks pretty gross.
Have you guys ever seen Machete, the movie Machete?
Machete.
Oh, yeah.
Machete.
Based on the fake movie trailer from Grindhouse.
With Danny Trejo.
Yeah, with Danny Trejo. There's
Next
a great...
pan.
So Aaron, are you telling me it's not accurate, the scene where he's in the second story of a hospital and he rips open a guy's abdomen, grabs his intestines, and then uses it as a rope to fly down the side of a building? That's not how it would work.
I think there's a few different inaccuracies with that particular scene that you're describing. Although I admit I haven't seen it, so I'll reserve final judgment for
Oh
I actually
boy,
get to see it in
that's
person.
it's a
But that
fantastic film.
seems unlikely. Yeah, no, I felt like when I saw the trailer for Machete, I sort of felt like I had seen all I needed to see of the movie.
Yeah. Well,
I kind of felt like I got the idea.
From the trailer.
You do get the idea. I'm not going to say it's not worth watching though, because it is a ton of fun.
Yeah.
But
I
it's
love Danny Trejo. He's pretty awesome.
you get the gist of what you're about to watch just from that trailer. Absolutely.
Nice. You know, Danny Trejo, he was in this crappy B movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme that I saw many years ago I really liked. I'm trying to think of what other connections he has to this movie.
What Van Damme
That's about
movie
the
were
only
they
thing I
in
can
together?
It was him and Mr. Miyagi from The Karate Kid.
Oh, Pat Morita.
Pat Morita.
Yeah.
And Jean-Claude Van Damme comes into this crappy little Arizona town.
Oh, is it Nowhere to Run?
No, that's a good
Oh.
guess, but no. And
Oh.
he's gonna like clean up the place, and he wipes out this like this gang of redneck guys that sell meth. Terrible movie, but it that's the only movie I can think of that Danny Trejo is in. That's also with some of these folks.
Yeah.
Desert Heat?
Yeah,
Desert Heat.
that's the one.
Desert Heat.
John actually watched it with me.
Yeah,
It
this
had-
was. Yeah.
the Pat Morita actually had some really terrible dirty jokes that kind of reminded me of the dirty jokes that that Hawkins has in this movie.
Oh, there you go. That's in kind of Van Damme's like dark stage where like he had fallen off
Straight to video.
superstar status, was doing straight to video stuff,
DTV.
but he was still taking himself seriously, you know. And then it wasn't from like another 10 years later that he just sort of embraced the fact that you can't take himself so seriously. He started doing like kind of tongue-in-cheek stuff later in his career. Some of it I really like. Like, did you guys ever see like the movie just called JCVD? And he plays himself.
Okay.
Yeah,
Fantastic movie.
yeah, it's really great. He plays himself, like a version of himself, and it's kind of meta, but it's really well done. Super fun. I feel like that was a good turning point for Van Damme.
Yeah, there was a funny show on Amazon called Jean-Claude Van Johnson where he plays himself, but he's also playing as if his actor self is his alias for his real self, which is a secret agent.
Right. Right. That was
the
great.
best scenes by far is when he's doing like his own. God, what am I thinking of? I can't even. It's like they have to do the split screen part of the scenes where it's like
He
him
plays his
and
own
it's
twin.
like it's like
His own cover.
right. It's like the drunken version of him or whatever. And he's and they're like arguing about Time Cop is a good movie. It's like the best time travel movie, not like that grab looper.
Time Cop is a good movie. I like
Keep coming back to Jean-Claude Van Damme. That's so great.
He's in the movie for exactly like 1.5 seconds.
Right.
As an invisible.
and he's invisible. Yeah.
While he's wearing a super embarrassing red suit.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
But he may as well be the star. And none of it would happen without him.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you guys, so last minute it was implied that Hawkins died, but we really don't find out for sure until we see the guts here, right?
Right.
It would be hard to live without those.
Yes. So this
You're
is
right. There's about 30 seconds. No, less than that.
Yeah. So this
There's
is sort
about
of
10 seconds where you can't 100% be sure he's dead. And you're just hoping, come on, pull through.
Yeah.
No, he's dead.
No, he's dead.
So
Hawkins is dead.
can we all agree this is like the official death of Hawkins here?
Yeah, this is where we're gonna lay down the in memoriam lone trumpet by Alan Silvestri. So sad to see one of our team members go. This is the first of possibly a few. We don't know yet. Hopefully the team can regroup and hunt down this savage beast of a hunter, just a coward using invisibility. Who would do such a thing?
Well, I've put together a little eulogy, if I may, for Hawkins. Would you guys like to hear?
Yeah, we took off our hats over,
Okay.
holding them on our hearts.
Does everyone have a glass of Sprite or whatever it is you're drinking there?
Saving some for Hawkins.
Yeah, we'll pour some out in the driveway later.
Pour some out for him.
I'm not real good at sentimental speeches, so I decided to write a limerick in honor of Hawkins. Title: Hawkins. There once was a nice guy on a choppa. He killed bad guys who lived in Palapas.
Whoa!
He made Billy croak with a vagina joke. But what's left of him now resembles lasagna.
Oh my god!
Very impressed.
Oh
There
my god!
R.I.P. Hawkins.
You put some real effort into this.
Lasagna. Holy cow! That was amazing.
Oh, Lord.
I hope you all enjoyed that one. I got more of an applause line than I was expecting. I'm kind of proud of myself.
That was good. If people are listening to their cars, they should pull over, go out of their car, and then just stand up and applaud by the side of the road, or stand up at your desk.
Well, I'm going to try to put together a little Limerick-style eulogy for all of our team members, if they happen to pass away. I don't know if they will or not.
I feel like the Limerick might just be a Hawkins kind of event, because that really fits his character, I think, pretty darn well.
He would have appreciated it out of everybody.
Pancho would appreciate one in Spanish, maybe, in Espanol. Is motherland.
See, yes. I'd have to brush up. I would just be saying, like, "Donde está biblioteca?" over and over again. That's all I remember from high school.
Google Translate can help.
Yeah. All right, you guys. Well, thank you for the applause there. I do appreciate that.
That was great.
That kind of brings us to the end of the minute. Do we have any other tidbits to add here? John, did you have anything else from your notes?
I don't know. Aaron, did you have any final thoughts as we say goodbye to Hawkins?
Well, I think we have some important things to follow here.
Sure.
So I think John wants to start a possible in memoriam where, yes, we have the important official eulogy from Mr. Glover, but we also can each share some of our memories of this character. And so John, I think, picked out some favorite lines that we can remember from this guy. So, John, what was your favorite line?
My favorite line, thank you, Aaron, was after the camp's destruction, Hawkins, who we know so well as the radio operator of the group, is like 2 dirty jokes and 2 radio operating jokes and a couple of like, yes, sir, please. And I wrote down the line.
Air surveillance says we got guerrillas all over the place. Can't be more than 1-2 miles away. This place going down.
And telling the team that this zone that they just exploded into space is now being closed in on by other guerrilla patrols. So they have to get out of there. And I really enjoy that line by Hawkins because it's really his one line of him doing his job for the team in the movie. And I'm a big fan of seeing the specialists do their thing. And he has the funky little, I don't know what it is. It's almost like a canvas satellite dish or something like that. It's like on a tripod. He's able to take that down and throw that in his pack and be ready to go. And we actually see his radio being carried on by the group later on because the Predator did not take his equipment or his weapon or his guts.
Lasagna.
Did not
Simple lasagna. Oh my god. Aaron, do you have a good Hawkins story or in memoriam?
As a child, I must say that I felt like I learned a lot. Really quite the introduction to sexual education for young Aaron. John, you may remember you had to explain these to me.
I did?
Yeah.
Like back in the day?
Yeah.
Explain this to. Oh my god.
I didn't really understand these jokes when I first saw this movie when I was, 7 or 8.
The other day, I went up to my girlfriend. I said, I'd like a little pussy. She said, me too. Mine's as big as a house. You see, she wanted a littler one because hers was big as a house.
John was like, "You see, brother Aaron, it's called a pussy."
She said hers was as big as a house. See, because hers was, she wanted a little one.
No, Hawkins did a good job of explaining the first one.
Yeah.
The second one, though, took a little more explaining.
And the second one is what makes Billy laugh.
The other day, I was going down to my girlfriend. I said to her, geez, you got a big pussy. Jeez, you got a big pussy. She said, why did you say that twice? And I said I didn't. See, it's because of the echo. With...
Yeah,
Yeah.
he wore him down.
Yeah.
That's what I will always remember Hawkins for.
Your own sex education. That's great.
Early on.
You guys probably already talked about the fact that Shane Black on this movie,
Black.
Matt!
where they had a bunch of different perspectives on exactly who hired him and why, and about how his character went and why. I've read at least 2 different sources that say that they killed his character off early in the movie because he wasn't willing to work primarily as a writer. And so when they hired him on, they had originally planned to try to get him to do some more work on the script, and he said he wasn't really that interested in doing it. And so the head writers were like, "Oh, okay, well, we'll just kill you off pretty quick then, because you're not going to be that useful to us."
Yeah, well, I mean, in the script, his character, the radio operator,
Is the first one to die.
yeah, is the first, like, this early, and this is before they know anybody who's working on it or who they have envisioned for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure that story doesn't hold up that well, but that's the way people have said it in interviews later.
And his character is actually an amalgamation of 3 different characters from the 1985 script, where there's like a guy from Boston, there's the rookie of the group, and then there's the radio operator, and they all have different names, like Murphy, and his name is actually Dylan in this, and then there's Hawkins. God. And all 3 of those are just combined because I believe his character, Rick Hawkins, is supposed to be from Boston, and he just happens to be the rookie, and he's the radio operator. And then 2 of those characters die in the camp raid originally. I think so you're seeing that, this is a dangerous mission, but they didn't let anybody be killed by these worthless gorillas that we see in the movie. Like, there's no way they would have done any damage.
The thing is, this minute and the minute before this really marked, I think, the transition from this movie as an action movie to more of the horror style.
Yeah, for sure. We've talked about that a little bit. Like the transition from Act 1 to Act 2 is also a genre shift.
Sure,
sure.
Absolutely.
We get that kind of the big, sweeping action movie with explosions and guys flying off of trampolines to more of a kind of a horror suspense sensibility. And it's done really effectively too. Like, not a lot of movies can pull off the genre shift like that, but I think this one really does it really well, because the shift makes sense in terms of the story, and so as an audience, you believe it, and that's what matters. Yeah. Have we honored our man Hawkins?
Yeah, our fallen soldier, Rick Hawkins.
Yeah, we poured one for our homie.
Yeah.
So, John, do we need to update our kill count then?
Well, I believe we officially updated it last minute, but just to revisit it, we're at 93 so far. 93 kills so far, including 9 good guys, now including Hawkins, now with fresh Hawkins guts, and 84 bad guys, with the last bad guy being the Scorpion under Mac's boot. Yes, so we're going to be just circling the 100 body count by the end of the movie, and I think we're going to be able to weasel our way towards 100. So,
all right,
now's the time, part of the show where we talk weekly recommends about something that you've seen, or something that you've read, or something that you are inspired by, or like shoes you're wearing, or like a new style of, I don't know, clothing that you're wearing, or like a kid's book that you thought was really awesome when you read to your little kids, because we all have little kids, like little toddler age kids. Yeah. So, Jeff, do you have something in the recommendation pipe?
Yeah, I'll do a quick recommend today. This is a recommend. I'm going to recommend a podcast, and I feel like it popped up in conversation a couple episodes ago between you and I. But I've It's a podcast I've been aware of, and I've listened to a few episodes, but fairly recently I've really started kind of like going back through their catalog, and I've been really enjoying the work they've been doing. And that is the podcast Blank Check.
Nice.
And and I know you're a fan of that one as well,
I
John.
am.
And the premise behind this podcast is it's essentially a podcast on filmographies.
Mm-hmm.
So they choose a director, and then each episode of the podcast talks about a movie from that director's filmography, with the idea being that this particular director found success early on and then was given a quote-unquote blank check to make whatever movies they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done a ton of filmmakers, and I'm currently working my way through Paul Verhoeven, one of my favorite.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah,
Wait,
one of
Paul
my favorite
Verhoeven got a blank check at some point
Yeah, they saved for
after RoboCop.
yeah, RoboCop.
Yeah, RoboCop was a big success, and he could pretty much make whatever he wanted to after that. And I'm actually listening to the RoboCop episode right now. And RoboCop being one of my favorite action movies, really just one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm really enjoying the episode because the hosts feel the same way about it as I do. They're very enthusiastic about that movie, so it's kind of it makes me giddy listening to them being so excited. So
good.
yeah, check out Blank Check. They've done a lot of episodes, so there's bound to be some movie that you love on their list. And if you find it, give that a listen, and I think you'll enjoy the hosts. They're pretty great. Yeah, so check out Blank Check, everybody.
I recently saw the new Godzilla movie, King of the Monsters. I'd say for the monster fighting, 2 thumbs up. For all the cutaways to dumb humans, I would take one of the thumbs down. So it's a solid thumbs up, I would say, of a film. My favorite parts were just plain old Godzilla fighting Ghidorah, aka Monster Zero, aka a bunch of other names, because they all have multiple names. And then like the downside of that is that you have to follow the human stories. So at times the monsters would be about to crash into each other, then all of a sudden like the humans would pop up in the foreground, and like we're gonna focus on their story now. And I'm sitting in the theater going, no, like I can see the monsters back there kind of blurrily fighting, like that's what I want to see. But all the same, the amount of monster fighting was much greater than in Godzilla 2014. So if you like the Godzilla movies, I would say check it out. Some good monster fights.
The thing that comes to mind for me is the children's book. John alluded to the fact that we were allowed to choose those. I
think it'll be our first children's book recommend.
My daughter
Yeah.
is 1 year, 9 months, and she is much more interested in animals than she is just about anything else around her. And we got our 2 favorite animal books is from one author, this guy Matthew Van Fleet, who helped make these very elaborate children's books. They have lots of pop-ups and things like that in it. And what's interesting and different about these pop-ups is these are sturdy enough that these are the few that my daughter has yet to rip apart into little pieces. These have actually stood up to some abuse. All of the just generic little flap books, she just ripped those flaps right off.
That is notable because, those flaps, they don't last. They don't last.
Okay.
And my favorite of his so far that we have is this alphabet book. And the reason I like that in particular is because it does not use the standard alphabet animals that you would expect. They're not all just like North American house pets, which is what a lot of the ABC alphabet animal books are. They actually include some very unusual animals, so I actually had to look up about half of them to find out what in the world they were, and so it became a little bit more interesting for the parent as well as the child.
Nice.
Awesome. Matthew Van Fleet animal books, in particular the alphabet one, it's sturdy, it has pop-ups, and it has unusual animals.
Hey, it has warthogs. There's your predator connection right there.
Nice.
Add to the body count later. Heyo.
Hey, look here, sweetie. This one dies with a knife attack.
Attack!
We don't go over the predator with my daughter as a turn. I don't recommend
P is for predator.
One thing that we mentioned, you alluded to briefly in this scene, is the fact that the Predator leaves behind his pack and then the rest of the team carries it. I've noticed that throughout this movie, these guys' packs get pretty heavy as they acquire more and more gear from people who are no longer with them.
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually show them like hurting under these, what eventually must be like 100-pound packs. In fact, you don't even actually see some of these equipment later in the movie.
That would be funny to see Arnold wearing like 8 backpacks at the very end.
But what I think is interesting is just how offhandedly, I can think of maybe 3 different scenes in this movie where Dutch just tells his team, "Okay, somebody pack his gear.
Right.
Haul it." Mac says, I'll haul it. Later in the movie, after they have to do this again.
Wait, what do you mean? Something happened later again?
I don't know.
No.
Feeling that they end up having to carry more gear. I think one of the guys twists his ankle.
Yeah,
and they have to carry his pack for him. Anyway,
cool.
Plus it's all covered in blood and stuff. Yuck.
Ugh,
Gross.
Diseases.
Oh,
have we reached the end, John?
I have one important thing that we should mention. Actually, why didn't the Predator kill Anna?
Why didn't the Predator kill Anna? I wrote that down and I forgot to mention that. So
wait, that's actually important because this is like part of the movie.
He's trying to punk Anna. He's trying to make her look like pranked her. Like they're gonna be so pissed at you, and they all have guns, and they probably already hate you.
That is a really good question that I didn't think of while watching this.
Well, they do explain it later in the movie.
What?
Or at least one of the characters explains a theory later in the movie of why he thinks this happened. But I want us to talk about it now. Maybe both with the benefit of hindsight, having seen the rest of the movie, and possibly our own thoughts at this point.
Well, if I put on my rookie viewing hat, then I'm thinking in that scuffle, Hawkins is very clearly pointing the gun at her face. So maybe the Predator is like some kind of guardian angel or guardian devil, just like looking out for Anna. It's like some weird spirit familiar, even though she's clearly in shock in this minute and following minutes. Could see someone taking the impression of, like she's working with some dude with sci-fi gear or some kind of dangerous creature.
That's an interesting thought. It's plausible, I guess, in some way. That's certainly one of the other characters later would definitely agree with you, saying that that's exactly what's going on. One of the things that comes to mind for me is that we know all those American soldiers died those mysterious deaths earlier in the movie, and we don't know exactly what happened. Maybe this thing has something against American soldiers. The other obvious thing that John mentioned is that Hawkins is the one who has the gun in there, so maybe just has something against people who are heavily armed. But
also who are like away from the group, because earlier on, all sorts of crew members are pointing guns in her face, like Panchito. And
that is interesting you say that, because that's a much different tactic. If this is the same thing that got the American soldiers earlier in the movie, that's a much different tactic, because in the earlier one, he says there was a massive firefight. They were firing in all directions, and they were obviously all killed. Whereas this seems to be focusing on the one who's separated from the rest of the group.
Right. Maybe Anna was there earlier, and they're all like bullying her. This group of American soldiers. The Predator just wasn't having any of that.
He didn't like the words that she exchanged with.
She said the code word
with Dylan.
Right.
Did you guys talk about the words that they exchanged in Spanish earlier as they were leaving the camp?
No, because my Spanish isn't that good.
Is in the background. I know
exactly.
It's actually kind of interesting because it's in the script. Oh. Those are lines directly from the original script. She is arguing with Dylan. And she calls him puto, which you guys probably know about.
Yeah,
and then he tells her it's a long walk home. You just keep it up or something like that. But that's in the background actually, as the camera's actually focused on some other things in that scene. But all that to say that Anna is obviously at odds with the entire team. But you would think that if someone was trying to try to focus on who she would be most upset with, it would be with Dylan, the one she argues with.
I just think it might be that the Predator is he's like a game hunter. This is all sport for him. And, if you are a hunter, sometimes you might avoid shooting females because, they're females. They might be pregnant with You know, so the predator might just be predisposed to not kill females out of just, respect for the game.
Whoa. Kind of like when you're crabbing, you only keep the males. You can't keep the females.
Yeah.
Right.
When you're hunting, you go for the buck with the big horns.
Pretty well established that the predator, he keeps trophies. This all seems like kind of a game to him, a sport to him. There's no real end game other than just killing them.
That sounds like someone speaking with the benefit of 20/20 hindsight.
Maybe, perhaps. And maybe also someone who has seen... Maybe someone who has seen Predator 2 as well.
And maybe The Predator? No, if you saw The Predator, you would have learned they throw all that out the window.
Yeah,
good Lord. Let's not talk about that anymore. Oh, okay. So, the funny joke in the comment sections of if you watch YouTube clips of Hawkins being killed, it says, and 20 years later, Hawkins, Shane Black, kills the Predator franchise. Hawkins' revenge.
Gets his revenge.
Yeah. Hey, and listeners, if you liked the Predator, good on you. You're on the wrong side of history. I'm just going to say that.
Well, it seemed like in defense of Shane Black killing the Predator, it seemed like that was in fact his goal, was to end the franchise. It didn't seem like he was trying to set up another series, right?
If you saw the end, you would think he's trying to set up a whole series.
I didn't. I actually haven't seen the movie. I was going off what you had told me.
Just the end scene is enough to make you think, oh wow, they do want to expand this universe. How cool is that? But yeah, if you want to see their exchange, like Aaron is saying, in English translated as they're leaving the camp, it's in the 1986 shooting script. If you need to see it, just let me know. You can visit the Predator Minute Listeners Palapa on Facebook. You can email us, predatorminute@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter @PredatorMinute. Jeff, where can people find you?
My name is College Bin Expert.
Well, I'm on the Twitter. I'm Carl_Hungus314. Jeff Glover on Twitter. Come follow me there.
Aaron, where can people find you?
They won't.
Where can people find you, Aaron?
I'll find you.
Well,
all right.
Yeah. I think that's it for Predator Minute 43. So for Predator Minute, I've been John Zabriskie.
And I am Jeff Glover.
This is Aaron Zabriskie.
And until next time.
You really think this Boy Scout stuff's going to work?
You really think this Boy Scout bullshit's going to work? It can see our tripwires. Maybe it can see this. Instead of complaining, maybe you should help.